Hey all, how you doing today? CVMG back again with more Infinite Magicraid, where today we will be going over the first rendition of SoloZ's 5-star tier list. How we're going to tackle this is I'm going to list off all of the characters in a tier, and then afterwards take some time to do an in-depth analysis myself off camera, then come back and tell you why I think they were put there. So without wasting too much of your time, let's start critiquing some 5-stars. We'll be starting in the support category, where we can identify one hero that shines above the rest, some honorable mentions, and then potentially undesirables. Let's check them out. And within the undesirables, we'll start with Vera, who seems to be an arena setup character who can apply a crit rate buff to all of your allies and also apply stealth to them, and healing allies under the stealth effect. Next is Nasakuma, who has an ability to steal all of the buffs from the enemy team and apply them to himself, which can be good again for PvP. He also has a totem to put up that horrifies a random enemy every round. Not very good for big groups of enemies, but that can also help prevent somebody from landing a killing blow on you. Elena I find very interesting, but also situational. She's a character that steals all of the buffs from the enemy and then provides all of the debuffs she had on herself to those enemies. Very interesting. I think it depends on the team that you're fighting, but that could definitely see some use. Zyra is able to apply a plethora of debuffs to the enemy with a specific chance, and this third skill is an area of effect attack that has a 25% chance to apply any one of these debuffs. The problem with this being that you can't control the debuffs that she applies, and you can't control, the percentage to land them, so I could understand why she would be here, but she could also potentially be very, very good. I definitely could understand why Mei would be put down here, because this third skill that is her saving grace that's supposed to apply attack down level 2 to the enemies does not have a 100% chance to do so, and all of her other abilities are just kinda meh. Ascendo is far too niche to be incredibly useful anywhere. She's going to need control effects to be inflicted in order to increase her AP by a mere 12% at max. It's really not that great, and this ability that deals damage to all enemies that's supposed to reduce AP and silence has a 15 to 30% chance to do that unless their AP is low to begin with, which isn't really the time that you need to use that. Fiona is more of a bruiser tank than a support. I wish we could classify these characters in more than one way, but for every debuff she has, she recovers a big portion of her HP, so if you have a debuffing team, it's going to be very hard to take her down. She also seems to do an area of effect attack that has a chance to stun, which is God mode in Arena. That is legit God mode Arena strats. That will definitely be meta by the end of the year. Gru is awesome. He's going to be like the 5-star version of Magus, where he has multiple area of effect heals. Very good character for keeping your entire team alive, and his third skill can deal some hefty damage too. Now with Taff, our area of effect heal also cleanses all of our damage over time debuffs, so that's very useful, but he applies stun in the form of second turn stun. How usually whenever you land a stun and then they're gone out of the next round, the stuns that he applies are the round after the next round. So a little bit niche, but also very interesting and very powerful. And in the S+ tier, shining a little bit brighter than the rest, we have Space, who can apply numerous AP boosts. She has a lot of AP manipulation to help your team get more turns, and that's why you'll see her constantly in high-level Arena. And standing on top of everybody else in the support section with a double S rank is Focus, and I can actually 100% understand why he is here. Say your ally uses a really good ultimate ability, and now it's his turn. He's able to completely fill up that ally's AP bar, reset that ability, and give them an attack buff. On top of that, he is able to grant all of your allies immortal for a round so that they just simply cannot die. This guy has got to be the king support. I 100% agree. So that covers all of the supports. If I wanted to provide a note for this section, I would say if this was a PvP focused tier list, Vera would definitely have to be higher, because applying stealth and crit rate up level 2 to your entire team is a very valuable ability. Next is the tanks, again with one being classified as better than the rest, and then one being classified as worse, and then we have a couple to look through in the middle, but there's not too many tanks, so this shouldn't take too long. Now way below everybody else in the tank section by a mile is going to be Sigmund, because he is a tank that focuses on dealing damage, but the damage he deals is focused on burning the enemy. Burning the enemy is based on your attack. So having a tank with abilities based on your attack is not good. He doesn't do a lot of damage, he doesn't have a kit for survivability. I totally get why he's down here. Next up we have Hao 9000, who has a gimmick debuff that increases the damage of his own ability. It's a little bit strange, but the thing that shines about this character is that they have a taunt and a self-shield. So whenever they apply this taunt, they're going to force everybody to attack him, and he's going to be taking less damage. That is amazing in PvP. Shilder, in my opinion, is an absolutely amazing tank tank, he has the same passive that Figen does that increases the defense of all of your allies, but his allies get a better defense buff, and it's every wave instead of just once. This AoE ability that he has also has a chance to inflict silence on the enemies, which is also very important, but for PvP. And Sintin is down here in the mid tier too. I think I'm starting to see a pattern where maybe this tier list is more focused towards PvE than PvP, because Sintin would definitely be like a triple S tier PvP defense unit. If he was on your arena defense, he applies the provoke to everybody so that they're forced to attack him, and then he counterattacks them every time they hit him. So it could make your, dungeons take a lot longer, or it can make your arenas a lot easier. I guess it just depends on your priorities. And Catherine, again, absolutely deserves to be on top of everybody else. I think we're pretty much on the same page whenever it comes to who the best support or who the best tank is, because she has an ability that applies a counterattack and a shield to all of your allies. So anytime any of your allies are attacked, they will counterattack. She can also restore their HP every single round at the beginning of the round. She can also decrease the damage that your entire team takes by 40% for the first 2 rounds. So, yeah. Okay, now that wraps up the tanks, which means that there's only one more section left, the attackers. But this is the largest section of the list, so before I dive into it, if you got this far, please like the video and subscribe because it really helps me out, and I appreciate it a ton. And sitting at the lowest of the low of the attackers is going to be Greta. Every single ability is single target and she has no self-sustain. And tied for worst spot on the list with Greta is Gromdy, who focuses on freezing the enemies, but the enemy also already has to be slowed in order for that freeze to take effect. It's not very good. Next up is Carrie, who also boasts some pretty insane multipliers, but her gimmick is that whenever you kill her, she comes back to life after 3 rounds. 3 rounds is a pretty long time, and dying should definitely not be a part of your strategy. Anna has some pretty low damage abilities, but her gimmick is supposed to be detonating burn, so you have to have an entire team built around burning the enemy first, and then she could be good. Gustav does damage to himself, which is undesirable, but he also comes with some innate leech and an ability that stops him for dying the first time you kill him for a round. So not great, but not the worst. Hisaro is a great unit as long as you pair him with other units that complement his bleeding capabilities. If he was the only unit on your team that did bleed, then I would say probably not a good choice. Serena is an attacker that must ramp herself up. Whenever you use these abilities, you will accumulate feathers, and the more feathers you have, the stronger her skills get. So they're not good whenever you first deploy her onto the battlefield, but by round 10 she's really going to be taken off. Situational, but pretty interesting nonetheless. And Adolf has a similar problem. Being a ramp-up unit, you have to get your stacks of boiling up in order to transform. At that point, he becomes like an unstoppable werewolf, but it takes a while to get there, and you can still die at any time. He's mostly single target. He's pretty good, but not the best. Okay guys, I'm going to be 100% honest with you. Zack Zulu, even though he does have one of the coolest designs in the game, I cannot figure out what he does. This passive says, for the target under the attack decrease status, Holocaust and Apocalypse slashes them when they have 30% HP. So what I gather from that is that this debuff I've placed on these characters, if they were at 30% HP, my attacks would be doing an extra attack. Is that right? I'm just sort of having trouble wrapping my head around whether he would be good or not, what situation. If you have him, please comment letting me know, because I can't tell you. Walter, again, whenever paired with other poison applying units, is going to be a godly unit, but if he is the only poison applying unit on your team, it's going to be hard to get the setup that he needs. He can also apply poison to enemies whenever they attack him, so that's a great defensive strategy as well whenever you have multi-hitting enemies. Horus is exceptionally good at finishing people off that are almost dead, and while that seems like it may not be important, in the arena it is especially important, especially whenever you have to deal with enemies that can revive or that can heal themselves back up to full. So if he's on your arena team moving last, being able to finish off those enemies with these abilities is very nice. Aisha seems to be a pretty good attacker. She does a lot of damage with this 3rd and 2nd skill, and this passive gives her a round of damage immunity, which can be very annoying for your enemy in the arena. But the most important thing about her is that her 1st skill is an area of effect attack, which essentially makes her one of the best farmers in the game. Dario is interesting. All of his attacks apply the Shadow Flame debuff, and whenever the enemy gets enough of that debuff, he will perform an extra attack against that enemy. But the 3rd skill ignores defense but cannot land a crit, and I'm sorry, but I cannot help but feel that is not a good trade-off. Achman is not only a farmable Nat 5, but he has some of the best abilities I've seen in this game. I would definitely consider putting him higher. Let's just read this 3rd skill. Augment attacks the enemy 5 times at random, with a 40% chance to inflict either a layer of burn or a layer of HP burning for 2 rounds. This means if you are fighting a boss like the guild boss, it hits that guild boss all 5 times and has the chance to apply all of those debuffs to that same unit. This is surely one of the best guild boss attackers in the game. Not only that, he has area of effects to apply burn and HP burning as well, so I would surely say this is a great nat 5. Now, Hazonia does most of their damage with HP burning, and even though HP burning scales with the character's HP stat, they still manage to do a lot of damage with that ability, and the more stacks of HP burning you apply, the more damage they do in general, so yes, this is a very good attacker. Okay, now for Yoko, I'm going to need a veteran Yoko user to tell me if she's actually as good as everyone says she is. She builds up stacks of focus using her first skill, and those stacks of focus can either be used to increase the chance to stun on her third skill, or convert it into a shield with her second skill. One impressive thing I can say is that this first skill has a 340% multiplier, so even if she is just using her first skill over and over, it should still do decent damage. Go ahead and let me know in the comments if she's as good as people say she is. Valentine is a very strong attacker. He has this lightning chain ability which causes his attacks to become multi-hit attacks. On top of that, every time he builds up these stacks, he starts to give himself a shield, allowing him to survive on the stage for even longer. Awesome choice for an attacker. Margarita does seem pretty good. She has this passive that whenever she builds up layers of blade, she unleashes an extra attack. Her third skill only adds 3 layers of blade. That means you will have to use 3 abilities before that passive activates, and you could argue that the exclusive equipment makes it much easier, but I would argue that you should not expect to max your exclusive equipment. So again, I'm going to ask for your help in the comments if you think she's really as good as people say she is, if it takes that long to get off the passive. Melia is an amazing character. She is sort of like Walter, but with HP burning. Every time you attack her, she has a chance to inflict a layer of HP burning. Her third skill buffs the effectiveness of all of the other attacks in her kit and gives her another round after it's used. Awesome. Now, Zaya is our only character in the Triple S tier, and she is in the Triple S tier for a reason. She has an ability called Concentration Increase that will guarantee a critical strike on her next attack. That is 100% crit rate that you do not have to put into her build at all, and you can still guarantee a critical strike. So instead of 100% crit rate and 300% crit damage, now you can have 0% crit rate and 400% crit damage and do infinitely more damage than any other character ever could. Her passive, Shadow of Master, allows her to deal an extra 160% damage to the target with the lowest HP every time she does an attack. All in all, an amazing character, and I agree 100%. She is insane. And that's the end of the entire 5-star tier list. If you want to check the list out yourself, you can check the links in the description, where you will also find download links to games that directly support the channel. Thank you so much for watching, but other than that, y'all, that's gonna do it for me today, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.